All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and man, the Commanders had a very busy day today. I mean, of course, we already have all of the team sales stuff and everything being submitted to the NFL for official review, which I just did a whole video breakdown just a few hours ago, so make sure you go check that out if you haven't already. But they also had a lot of players visiting today. I didn't necessarily know that an NFL team could have this many players visiting in one day. Apparently, they had offensive tackle Anton Harrison in today, defensive end Myles Murphy, defensive back Quan Martin, quarterback Hayden Hooker, all in Ashburn today. But what's really interesting about Hendon Hooker is the fact that they had dinner with them yesterday. So dinner with them one day, and then an official top 30 private visit the next. That is crazy. Is there some real interest there for them to go out of their way to do that? Or, I mean, the last time the Commanders had dinner with somebody, they ended up hiring them. That's Eric Bieniemy. How much stock should we put into this Hendon Hooker dinner? And of course, one of the most interesting things is the fact that they're looking so heavily into defensive end with this Chase Young, Montez Sweat situation after they already paid Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. We're going to dive into that whole situation and why it's likely that the Commanders could draft a defensive end and edge rusher sooner than what people think. They have until May 1st to pick up Chase Young's option. That's after the draft, so they're probably waiting until the draft to see what they're going to do there, and then if they don't end up drafting the guy, they will probably be more likely to pick up Chase Young's fifth-year option. But if they take a guy sooner than you think, especially somebody as soon as like a Myles Murphy going in the first round, Chase Young's options probably not getting picked up. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Sunday for the call-in show live stream where y'all call in, you voice your opinions. Of course, this one is going to be heavily draft centered because the draft is next Thursday. So this upcoming Sunday, we're going to do mock drafts together. I'm going to open up the phone lines. Y'all can give whatever opinions you may have on a lot of the players, introduce a lot of your sleepers to everybody, put everybody on, all that type of stuff, man. It's going to be really fun. And without further ado, let's get it. All right, so the first guy we're going to talk about that visited today is Quan Martin, aka Jartavius Martin, whichever one you want to call him. Ian Rappaport tweeted himself that he's coming in for a Commanders top 30 visit today, which makes 10 total for him, including the Titans, the Saints, the Giants, the Colts, the Seahawks, Packers, Bills, Lions, and the Bucks. This is a busy man, and according to the Draft Network's big board, he's the 101st ranked player. So he's somebody that we may be able to get late third, early fourth if we're really interested in this guy. And also, I want to point out the fact that he's not the only Illinois defensive back that we're interested in. Of course, Devon Witherspoon, we went to their pro day. We brought Devon Witherspoon in for a top 30 private visit as well. And I know I keep saying it, but just for those of you that may not know, these top 30 private visits are called that for a reason. You're limited to 30 private visits every draft cycle for each upcoming draft. You can only bring in 30 players. Now, again, we drafted Jahan Dotson without bringing him in for a visit, talking to him at the combine or anything like that. So visit doesn't automatically mean that we're going to end up bringing one of these guys in, drafting them or whatever. But it does show that there's a level of interest there. Devon Witherspoon, we talked to him at the combine. We brought him in for a private visit and, of course, went for his pro day. And then, of course, same thing with Jartavius Quan Martin. We went to his pro day because we went to the Illinois pro day. There's no telling if we specifically went for Devon Witherspoon or Quan Martin as the primary reason which one it was, but either way, we were at the pro day. We got a good chance to see both of those guys. And then we also brought Jartavius Martin in for a visit as well, all the way to Ashburn. Those are two Illinois defensive backs that we're interested in. Now, of course, Devon Witherspoon, we know for a fact he's a corner. But Quan Martin, some people see him as a corner. Some people see him as a safety. He's really interesting. Now, the thing that intrigues me the most, even beyond the fact that you can consider him like a slot corner, you can consider him a safety, basically a direct replacement for Bobby McCain if that's what you want to do. Because I know a lot of people act like Bobby McCain wasn't that good, which I pushed back against. I mean, he wasn't great, but he was decent, and there was a reason he was getting as many snaps as he did. So the fact that we lost him shows that there is a hole on this defense. Now, maybe we already have the guy on roster that's going to step up big time in his place, maybe like a Percy Butler. I hope that's who it is. But at the end of the day, Bobby McCain was getting all of those snaps for a reason. Him leaving is not just as simple as, oh, Bobby McCain's gone, we don't have to make any changes, we're just going to continue moving forward and not draft a guy or bring somebody in through free agency to replace him. It's not like that. You got to find somebody out. Somebody's going to have to step up that's currently on the roster, or we're going to have to draft a guy, bring a guy in free agency after the draft, whatever. But the most interesting part about Quan Martin, even besides how versatile he is and how much he seems like a direct replacement and upgrade over what we had in Bobby McCain, is the fact that he has a 9.28 RAS score. Y'all know I'm big on athletes. Love my athletes. Crazy athletic guy, man. I mean, crazy speed, crazy explosion. So he's able to make plays, closing out on the ball and things like that. Even if he's beat, he's not necessarily beat because he has that elite speed and explosion to make up for it. He also had a 91 overall run grade from Pro Football Focus, along with 7 career interceptions and 15 forced incompletions in 2022. That means that teams kept trying him. Quarterbacks kept throwing the ball his way, and he kept making plays. So he's battle tested for sure. Devon Witherspoon is battle tested as well, but you could tell at a certain point, quarterbacks were like, all right, man, this guy is potentially a first round pick. Maybe we shouldn't throw it his way as much. So Jartavius Martin ended up getting targeted quite a bit more, and he was stepping up to the plate, man. I know he seems like a potential late third, early fourth round pick, but that's great value right there to get somebody as good as him at that point in the draft. And then again, with his athleticism, his explosion and speed, and his experience in zone coverage, he could be a really good fit for this team late in the draft, or at least in the middle of the draft or whatever. I'm not just going to sit here and act like Quan Martin is just this automatic Pro Bowl guy if we draft him, but don't be surprised if we end up getting him in the 3rd round or later and he steps up and is an immediate contributor to this team on a top 5, at the very least top 10 defense that we're working to put together this upcoming season. Next up, the Commanders also hosted Clemson defensive end Myles Murphy for a top 30 private visit as well. Again, we're limited to how many of these we can have every season. And it's really interesting too, because this year we pretty much heard about all of them. Last year we heard about some of them, and maybe we just didn't use a lot. Maybe we did hear about all of them, we just didn't do them all. This year they stretched it. They reached their limit of 30, I believe. And again, Myles Murphy being a defensive end is very interesting. I mean, first of all, a lot of people feel like Myles Murphy, you can make an argument, is the best edge, or you can argue maybe the safest edge in this draft class. And honestly, if he's available at 16, some people feel like he would be the best player available, even though we don't need edge rusher as much as some people feel like we probably do. Of course, I'm an optimistic guy. I'm a glass half full guy. I'm hoping that we could somehow find a way to keep Chase Young and Montez Sweat long term. Again, like I've already said, having the cheapest quarterback in the NFC East helps a lot, man. Sam Howell's probably the cheapest quarterback in the entire NFC when it comes to how much he costs. 5th round pick, still on a rookie contract. All of these other guys, Jalen Hurts is the highest paid quarterback and player in the entire NFL. Daniel Jones just got paid big money. Dak Prescott got paid big money a couple of years ago, and they keep pushing his contract back to where now they're gonna have to pay him like 40-50 million next year against the cap, and some craziness like that. If we have Sam Howell on this rookie deal, this 5th round rookie deal, let me emphasize that, not a 1st round, a 5th round rookie deal. Of course, we don't have the 5th year option there, but if we're talking cheap, if he can ball out and at the very least be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL and be at least comparable on the field to those other quarterbacks in the NFC East, you know how much easier it would be and how much more competitive we could be as far as trying to be Super Bowl contenders if we have this quarterback on this cheap contract doing things that these other quarterbacks making this top money are doing. And then that would allow us to pay all of these other guys on the rest of the team, and potentially, I mean, it's almost impossible to pay all 4 defensive linemen top money. But with a quarterback on a young cheap deal like this, if there's any way humanly possible, we could figure it out with Sam Howell being on that rookie contract. Of course, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter at all how cheap he is if he isn't good. So we're just basically assuming that he'll be good. Not necessarily assuming, but really hoping and basing a lot of our decisions on that. But clearly, they're not putting all of their eggs in one basket, which we're going to talk about later with Hendon Hooker. But as of right now, again, having Sam Howell on that rookie deal, and if he balls out, gives you the opportunity to be able to pay these guys. But at the same time, there's some serious uncertainty with this Chase Young and Montez Sweat situation, and I wouldn't be surprised if they went edge rusher sooner in the draft than people think. think. Some people think that we may just wait till like 6th, 7th round, day 3 to take an edge rusher. But hey, man, at the end of the day, with how this Chase Young and Montez Sweat situation is looking, and it's already been reported, I talked about it a couple of videos ago, that there are teams already prying into the situation and trying to figure out how they can take Chase Young and Montez Sweat from us. You know how hard it is going to be for us to keep both of those guys. So the Commanders may use the strategy of drafting their edge rusher that's going to potentially start for us in the next year or 2 years now, so he can already be within the system, learning behind Chase Young and Montez Sweat, learning how to do things the Jack Del Rio way, the Jeff Zgonina and Ryan Kerrigan way. Maybe bring in Warren Sapp to coach him up a little bit in the offseason as well. Go ahead and draft that guy now, so by the time Chase Young and or Montez Sweat are gone, within a year or 2, he's ready to step up and start in their place, and it's not like you're just bringing in a rookie out of nowhere to do it. So don't be surprised if we go edge rusher in the first round. I wouldn't want to. I prefer to go DB, especially corner or offensive tackle in the first round. Maybe if you trade back, maybe even tight end, maybe interior offensive lineman. But edge rusher makes sense for us to take sooner in this draft than people think. But of course, me being glass half full, I hope the whole Chase Young and Montez Sweat thing works out. But Myles Murphy himself, man, he's a good player. Again, if he's available at 16, you can argue he's the best player available. But is it that serious of a need to where we need to actually take him there? That's where the debate begins. But will Myles Murphy be a good player at the NFL level? I believe so. I don't feel like there's much of a dispute there. And of course, with Chase Young's 5th-year option, if we pick it up, again, the deadline is May 1st, which is after the draft, which again, like I explained in the intro, makes things pretty interesting. And we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. But he will have $17.45 million guaranteed for this upcoming season, the 2024 season, not this season, the 2024 season. But if they don't pick up his 5th-year option and end up having to franchise tag him, it's going to cost us way more than that almost 18 million. So I feel like you just play it safe. Go ahead and pick up that 5th-year option. Let him go out there and ball out, and then we worry about paying him 2 years from now rather than next year. But we'll see how it goes, man. It's a really interesting situation, a really sensitive situation. We saw Chase Young, no knee brace, practicing with the team. I'm out there with the team for the beginning of phase 1 of off-season activities. So it looks like he's healthy, and hopefully he has a big year this season. We'll see how this goes. And then Hendon Hooker. I mean, I've already talked about Hendon Hooker enough, so I'm not going to dive into like weaknesses and strengths and how good he is. But I do want to talk about the fact that he flew in yesterday and had dinner with team officials. And then he had an official top 30 private visit with the Commanders today at the facilities in Ashburn. So that's really interesting that they went out of their way to have dinner with the man as well. And again, like I said in the intro, the last time we had dinner with somebody, we ended up hiring him as our offensive coordinator, assistant head coach, and Eric Bieniemy. So does that show that there's strong interest in Hendon Hooker? Because I haven't heard any reports about us taking any other draft prospects to dinner. This is the only one I've heard of. Not to say that this is the only one that they've done it with, but there has to be some serious interest there for you to take time outside of the top 30 visit to take this guy to dinner. Really random. I wonder if Eric Bieniemy was there as well. So like I foreshadowed earlier, it seems like the Commanders are not putting all of their eggs in one basket, man. They're like, hey, man, we hope Sam Howell works out. We're going to give him this year to do it. We have Jacoby Brissett as a backup, but we need 2 future quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett is not a future quarterback. He's a now quarterback if Sam Howell doesn't work out. But if Sam Howell doesn't work out and Jacoby Brissett, you clearly know that he's just a this year thing, it would be nice to have another guy that could be a potential future franchise quarterback on the roster. The problem is, when do you think Hendon Hooker is going to last in the draft? Because I don't think it's necessarily worth it taking him in the first round. But at the same time, this guy was easily going in the first round with his Heisman campaign before his terrible torn ACL late into the season. We got to remember that torn ACL happens. That torn ACL happened so late in the college football season that he may not even be ready to play if a team needs him to play September or October. Maybe not even necessarily November. Who knows how he's healing from it? He couldn't even participate at his own pro day. He couldn't do anything at the combine. So far, the last thing we've seen him really do was play college football before he tore his ACL. And again, he will not be able to contribute anything immediately to a team. But at the same time, he plays in the Tennessee offense, even though he has a lot of high floor to him because of his mechanics and things like that. The Tennessee offense is terrible. It's so QB friendly. It's like the opposite of a pro style offense, like the least pro style offense running, at the very least, the SEC East. Everybody else in the SEC East runs a more pro style offense than Tennessee. It's the most gimmicky offense doing it in the entire conference. So you may not want him to play immediately anyway, but you got to take that into consideration when you draft him, and especially when we're thinking about where he may fall in the draft. Torn ACL, coming from a gimmicky offense, but at the same time, the last time we saw him, he was balling out, and he would have been a first round pick if he never got hurt. And you never know, maybe he even wins the Heisman. So hey man, the Hendon Hooker situation is really interesting, and I've been saying it since we hired Eric Bieniemy that he's probably going to want to bring his own quarterback in. He may like Sam Howell a lot, may love him, love what he's seen from him, especially in that Cowboys game, but at the end of the day, Eric Bieniemy didn't draft that guy. Eric Bieniemy just got here. He may want to draft his own quarterback to have attached to his name that he could be grooming while Sam Howell goes out there and does his thing. Again, being glass half full, I hope Sam Howell works out really well, especially like I mentioned earlier with the Chase Young, Montez Sweat edge rusher situation. Having a young quarterback on a cheap 5th round rookie deal right now, it just opens up the endless possibilities for us to pay everybody else around said quarterback to make us a Super Bowl contender. That's why the Eagles were so great last year and they were able to make that run. Jalen Hurts stepped up big time. He was getting paid pennies, and then they were able to add so much talent and free agency, trade for guys. They drafted well as well, but now you can see Jalen Hurts contract pending. Even before he got paid, they had to let so many guys go to other teams because they knew they were going to have to pay Jalen Hurts, and now that they've paid him, it's going to be extremely difficult and pretty much impossible to have the same amount of talent around him as they had last year, because guys want to get paid too. Guys aren't about to take these severe pay cuts and allow the quarterback to sit here and eat up 30% of the cap space. So the Eagles are going to struggle to get back to the Super Bowl with their current situation. So maybe this is our opportunity if Sam Howell's ready to step up. But again, just talking about Hendon Hooker specifically, wouldn't be surprised if Eric Bieniemy wants to have his own guy attached to his name, learning behind Sam Howell just in case. And then also lastly, Anton Harrison from Oklahoma. He's potentially a candidate to be picked 16th overall. Some people feel like we could probably end up getting him in the 2nd round. Some people view him as too raw or something like that. I don't exactly see it. I can see why some people like my boy Washington Command Center and my boys over there at the Burgundy podcast have a good argument that Anton Harrison could easily end up being the best tackle from this draft class and is worthy of that 16th overall pick if we want him. A lot of big boards have him going late 1st, 2nd round, things like that. And man, the fact that we're bringing him in shows that we're aware. Like, clearly this coaching staff knows that Anton Harrison has crazy talent to him. First of all, the footwork is insane for a guy his size. And then the only inconsistent thing about him is the run blocking, because sometimes he looks like almost Darnell Wright level powerful. But then sometimes it's just like, where did all that power go some snaps? It's really weird. But if we're talking about pass protection, out of all of the tackles in this draft, and you could argue all offensive linemen, period, really the only guy with better pass blocking and pass protection tape than him is arguably Peter Skoronski, and that's it. These are the 2 top pass blocking offensive tackles, at the very least offensive linemen maybe. Offensive linemen in general maybe in this entire draft class. It's literally Anton Harrison and Peter Skoronski. That's how great his pass protection is. So there's a floor there, which still confuses me as to why some people think he may make it to the 2nd round, because being arguably the best pass protecting tackle at the very least in this draft class, only behind a Peter Skoronski, who's probably going to end up being a guard at the next level anyway. So if Peter Skoronski is projected to be a guard, you can argue Anton Harrison is the best pass protecting tackle in this draft class. I don't really see him making it out of the 1st round. And honestly, if he's there at 16, I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders take him. I love Darnell Wright and Broderick Jones a little bit more, but I am a big fan of Anton Harrison. Again, I can see the argument for why some people feel like he's the best tackle in this draft class. And again, the only inconsistencies that he has is in run blocking. But then if you only look at highlights, if you only look at his positive snaps, his wins in the run game, you would think he was the best run blocker in this draft class as well, because sometimes he just completely overpowers guys. But then he's just a little inconsistent there, but you can coach that up. His problems are coachable, and the things that he has, you can't teach. You can't teach that length. You can't teach that strength. You can't teach that footwork that he has. I mean, he can mirror smaller, shiftier, bendy edge rushers. He can hold up against the more powerful guys. I mean, if you want a true pass protecting tackle that you don't have to worry about, Anton Harrison is your guy, so I'm not surprised that we're bringing him in for a visit. And with him only being 21 years old, to me, the potential is limitless there. He has so much time to get better and work on his game. Martin, again, it's things that you can coach. He has all of the physical stuff that you can't teach somebody. You work on him here and there with a couple of things, and man, you could have a true Pro Bowl left tackle for you right there. Which gets interesting because if we draft a tackle in general, even if it's not Anton Harrison, what happens with our offensive line? They've already said that Andrew Wiley is our starting right tackle. Samuel Cosme is our right guard. We're going to assume Chase Roulier is our starting center as long as he can stay healthy, but when in doubt, Nick Gates can step up at center. And then we have a battle at left guard between Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles, apparently. And then Charles Leno is just starting left tackle. So if you draft this guy, if anything, right now, our biggest hole on our offensive line is left guard right now. And we're not bringing him in to play left guard. So do we just say, all right, Andrew Wiley, we told you you'll be a starting right tackle, and the last time we saw you play in the NFL and dominate, which was in the Super Bowl against the Eagles, was you at right tackle. That was the best blocking game he's had in his entire life, and we're just going to take him from right tackle to move him to left guard because we drafted Anton Harrison. So I'm assuming at that point, Andrew Wiley is your starting right tackle, Charles Leno is maybe your backup swing tackle, or maybe they go ahead and release him. The reason we have Charles Leno right now is because going into the draft, people didn't necessarily expect the Bears to draft a new left tackle. They did, and then they ended up cutting Charles Leno after the draft, and then we picked him up after the draft. Maybe history repeats itself where we draft Anton Harrison, he's our starting left tackle, and we end up releasing Charles Leno for somebody else to pick up after the draft again. And poor guy, if that happens to him, man, poor guy, I'm not gonna lie. But Anton Harrison is worth it. If you want to go that route, Anton Harrison a left tackle and Andrew Wiley at right tackle, I'm perfectly fine with it. We just got to figure out left guard later in the draft or something, or maybe Chris Paul, the way he looked against the Cowboys, he's able to only get better from there, and he's just starting left guard moving forward, and then we have a really good offensive line potentially. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video, all 4 prospects that we covered and how they could potentially fit on this team. Do you believe there's any serious interest in any of these 4 guys? How do you feel about the Hendon Hooker dinner? Does that matter? Does that actually show that the team is really interested in him more than other potential prospects, or is it just a formality that you believe it may be or something? Whatever. How do you feel about the Chase Young Montez Sweat situation and the fact that we may take edge rushers sooner than you think? How do you feel about the cornerback situation? How do you feel about the tackle situation, especially in Anton Harrison? Where do you have him ranked in your tackle rankings? And of course, man, again, please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.